You are listening to Brain Software Podcast Episode 113 from the Hypnotic World Epicenter, Toronto, Canada. Today, we start examining the general principles that lead to excellence in hypnosis. So, stay tuned. It's a rainy day, boys and girls, and we're flying, but not on false drugs. We're high on hypnotic power. Ha 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 ha! And you can be too.
We are not witches!
So pull up an umbrella and slip on a sou'wester. It's fun to ride the rain and the storm and the most glanative aspects of being awesome. Because we are awesome. And you're awesome too.
Dirty num-nums. I identify as a 5,000-year-old hypnotic wizard who demands obedience, Frodo.
But whatever happened to that old tranquility we used to know? These are days of victory! So please help me in welcoming to the Hypnoticon, the king of hypnotic blues. A 5-year-old child in a very fit 65-year-old body.
Yes.
A man who's actually partied with Rush.
It's true.
Mike effing Mandel!
That's a good one, Mike effing Mandel.
I love it.
I used to say Mike Man effing Dell.
Okay, let me do that again. Mike Man effing Dell! There we go.
Fantastic, Chris.
Just for the fun of it, I get to introduce you twice that way.
Good stuff,
All
man.
right.
Here we go, 113.
So this is fun. Now, we've decided that we're going to start a series on... Well, a mini-series. We're going to go back to basics. So we're going to talk about the fundamentals of hypnosis, the principles of hypnosis. So we'll have this collection 113 through to, I don't know, maybe 115, 117.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes.
We'll use some audience questions. This one's not going to use so many audience questions, but we're going to talk a lot about the general principles of hypnosis. And I think it's going to be a fun collection of podcasts to get people...
And with some solid material for anybody doing hypnosis, too.
Absolutely. And I also want to say, we are the only podcast sponsored by the Shiz Jig Corporation.
Let's keep it
the only one in the world. Yeah. Okay.
Fantastic, man.
So,
now, hey, we've got we're just coming off Architecture of Hypnosis November, which was phenomenal. Our biggest class ever, 35 people. We can't take more than that.
That's pretty much a full class
in our
now.
Fabulous
we're in a
room.
new room, so we have a little bit more capacity, but we're not going mega scale or anything crazy like that. We still love being able to interact with everybody, memorize everybody's names on the first day, hang out with everybody.
Buddy, what a blast that was. We had 20 Canadians, 8 Americans, and 7 internationals.
Yes.
By actual count. And it was just a wonderful week in that room. And we had some real breakthrough stuff happen and just a blast.
And the May class is already more than half full. So just those of you considering coming to train with us, live training in Toronto, it is, what did I say the dates are? May 13th through 17th. Is that right? I'll have to check. Here, let me check the calendar.
Shall we? I think
right
it's 12
now,
to 16.
I can't remember exactly when
He's
the
going
week
to
is.
his calendar.
Here it is. It's the 13th through the 17th of May 2019 in Toronto. You can sign up at MikeMandelHypnosis.com.
How is that doing? I'm sorry I interrupted your URL. Okay, go ahead. I caught myself.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Every single time I do a URL.
You can't say bastard. You have to say bast.
I said bast.
Okay.
I did say bast.
You can never say bastard in a podcast.
Yeah, like you've just done twice. MikeMandelHypnosis.com/events is the page to go to for all of our live events. And there's actually quite a few coming up because in addition to the May training, which is more than half sold out, and remember, we're raising the price January 1st. We're not going to raise it a crazy amount, but we are raising it. So sign up before that. Yeah. We have confirmed. Are we going to spill the beans on this one?
Let's do it, buddy.
Coming?
Let's do it.
All right. So in April, we have Anthony Jacquin and Freddie Jacquin flying into Toronto to teach an awesome weekend training. And it's going to be fantastic. So we are excited to have them coming in. And we've been putting together a plan for what I think is going to be some phenomenal training. They are just really, really awesome hypnotists, really good trainers.
Well, they're really drawing attention, Chris, because even some of our students internationally, we have Michael, who we won't give his last name, but he's a medical doctor in Adelaide, Australia, and he's coming out for AOH in May. And he wants to come out the weekend before, so be here for the Jacquins, and then the next day go right into AOH with us.
Well, that's the nice thing about it, right? It's did I say April? It's May. What am I talking about? It's not April.
Yeah,
it's in May. It's literally the weekend before. It's the 11th and 12th.
Right.
So it's May 11th and 12th, which, I'm an idiot. Okay, but I admit it, so it's okay.
Okay.
The Jackwins are coming the 11th and 12th of May, which means that anyone taking the 13th through 17th live training with us can just come a couple of days early and take the Jackwin training with us.
If they sign up.
Because we're going to be students too.
Yeah.
It's, exactly. You have to sign up.
And Freddie and Anthony are friends of ours. I think they're just fantastic trainers. They bring a fresh look at hypnosis. I think it's going to be fantastic.
Yeah, I'm just still...
I said fantastic twice, but I didn't say bastard anyway.
I
you can't say bastard.
I still can't believe I said it was in April. What's wrong with me, Mike? It's very depressing.
Now, I just want to clarify something. Any more promotions you wanted to mention?
No, let's go right into the content.
I just want to clarify. I did not technically party with Rush, but I did technically party with Geddy Lee and Alex Lifeson, but Neil Peart was not there.
Okay.
And folks,
so
don't say Neil Peart. He hates it. It's Peart. It rhymes with beard and ear. It doesn't rhyme with like ver.
So how did you end up partying
it was
with
fantastic.
two members of Rush?
I just started as a mentalist hypnotist, 1975, and it was either in 75 or early 76. I think it was 75, so a long time ago. But Rush were just taking off. They played Massey Hall. They were doing great. And their manager, Ray Daniels, they were being booked through Music Shop International, which was the agency that booked me. Ray Daniels was having a stag, and they ran it at Music Shop. And because I knew all the agents, they invited me to his stag, and Geddy and Alex Lifeson just showed up.
That's
so
really
just
cool.
Sitting there talking to them and thinking, these are the guys in Rush I just saw at Massey Hall. I mean, it was amazing. And no idea they'd become huge.
Yeah, what a life you've had so far. But it's still going. It's not over.
Is that lying?
It's not over.
Oh, have you lived your whole life in Toronto? Not yet.
All right. Let's get into this, man. We're going to have a great podcast. We want to focus on some of the general principles of hypnosis. And by no means is this going to replace the opportunity for you to do our online training, the Mike Mandel Hypnosis Academy, or come to Toronto and study with us. But we want to give you some good quality material. Where do you want to start, Mike?
I want to start with the obvious, Chris. When you're doing hypnosis, keep it simple. It's the same with the NLP stuff I do, whatever. The whole idea is people seem to think that complexity equals intelligence. And that is certainly not the case. Although I know possibly, 4 billion hypnosis techniques and factoids, I default to the same dozen all the time. And the reason why is the more simple your work, the easier it is to control it, the better results you'll tend to get. And you know what I mean by this, Chris. Let's just look at it in terms of inductions. We've seen inductions where how many frickin' flights of stairs do people have to walk down in their mind, and how many doorways they go through, and how many beaches of sand they have to rub names out of, and how many, repetitions they have to say in their head, and how many colored couches they sink into that then descend to another. This is ridiculous stuff because, you've done the course and you've co-trained with me so many times. People are routinely amazed when they see how easy hypnosis can be.
Yeah, I remember you used to teach that.
I nearly said but go ahead.
You used to teach that on the you still do, we still do. But I remember taking your class many, many, many years ago, and you just do a demo and then say, hypnosis is easy.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, well, you make it look easy. And then, of course, a few days into it, you're going,
yeah, it is easy.
It is easy. Yeah. And our students have the same experience on the Monday of the class. It's usually, well, that looks really hard. I don't know what to say. And then by the Wednesday afternoon,
they're flying by there.
They're like, oh, it's actually really easy. Yeah, it is. You have to get used to a few basic concepts around language, which maybe we can get into either in this podcast or the next. And by the way,
if you're keeping it easy, you have to keep it simple.
Yeah, I want to invite those of you who are interested in, I caught myself. Those of you listening,
which is all of you.
Yeah. Those of you interested in hearing us expand on some of this stuff, feel free to send us an email, info@MikeMandelHypnosis.com. Those emails go to both Mike and to me. So if you send us questions to elaborate on some of this stuff,
Chris will answer and I'll essentially delete them.
Yeah, we want to include... Here's the thing.
Kidding.
Don't expect me to email you back the answer. Send in the questions for us to include in a discussion.
Live discussions,
and upcoming episodes of this little mini series on principles of hypnosis. And preferably record them with your phone or your computer and send us the audio file.
That's the best.
These days, it is so easy with your smartphone, whether it be an iPhone or an Android. They all have built-in voice recorders. Open up the app, record your question somewhere, hopefully not in the middle of traffic. But
Right.
you don't need to go and bury yourself in a walk-in closet full of clothes to muffle the sound or anything. Just stand in your kitchen or whatever.
You're on a roll.
Talk your question. Keep your question tight, unlike my explanation of what I want your question to be. Keep it to about 30 seconds. Send it to us, and we'll include your voice. It'll be way more interesting.
The thing is why I'm laughing is you've just given me a whole new comedic element we can work with. It's called the "you do not need to" intervention.
You don't need to.
It's you said you don't need to go in a walk-in closet. You can say keep your hypnosis simple. You don't have to go down to a torture chamber and fasten someone onto a rack and burn them with hot irons. You don't need to do that. It's just
you don't need to do that at all.
Bizarre, you don't need to make a big pot of tea and pour it for everyone in your house. It's just mentioning the absurd of what you don't need to do. Birdie num-nums.
It's not necessary to install a Sonos system with 16,000 speakers in all areas of the house.
Okay, we are no longer keeping it simple. All right, for sure.
So keep it simple. And the next bullet we have is...
Wait, I'm not done with keep it simple because I think this is really key. And I want to give another example from NLP. When I did my initial NLP practitioner training and then did the master with Derek Balmer and then the trainer with him and John Grinder helping out and stuff. Anyway, when I did the practitioner one in Bandler's system, one of the things we were looking at was eye accessing cues. And I still think they're valid. Other people don't like them. People say they mean disproven, which to me is sort of like disproving the effectiveness of vitamin C because this doctor gave massive doses to someone and their cancer didn't shrink any faster, whatever. And then you find out for him, massive doses were 300 milligrams, whereas Pauling was talking about 60 grams, 6,000.
Yeah, through
60,000 grams. Yeah, through IV.
Yeah.
So we really have to look at how this was discovered. Anyway, in this training I did, we were looking at the major representational systems. This is a proof of what happens when you do not simplify. So we have visual, auditory, and kinesthetic. Kinesthetic has two subgroups.
So visual is obviously seeing. We want to make sure we keep this simple enough for those who are new to hypnosis and don't even know what it means to, induce a trance. So let's, and I'll help make sure that we bring this back to basics because I know we have a tendency to just dive into a discussion.
We're keeping it simple right now.
Hypnotists.
We're keeping it simple.
Yeah, we're going to keep it simple. So visual things you see or imagine you see. Auditory things that you hear or imagine that you hear.
Same pathways.
And as kinesthetic feeling system, which also includes olfactory and gustatory, which is smelling and tasting. But
it also has physical touch as well as emotions, so the same neural pathways. So those are the systems. And the eye accessing patterns will show you whether someone is using visual, auditory, kinesthetic, or auditory digital, which is you're talking to yourself in your head.
Yeah. And we're not claiming that this is 100% true all of the time.
I just find it to be a useful model.
It's useful most of the time for most of the people.
Useful model. But in this training I did, Chris, they taught us there's another system, the energetic system.
Oh, my
goodness.
Like,
what? Yeah. And they're saying, this one guy in the class, his energetic system gets home before he does. And we're going like, what are you talking about? Well, two of us were going, what are you talking about? The rest of the class is nimmued and bright-eyed and just wonder. And anyway, they said, it's interesting because the original eye accessing pattern didn't even have the energetic system in it. And we're both looking at each other going, because it isn't there. So they attempted, all of this
to
force it in, attempting to make something more complex. And we'll see people in NLP and hypnosis creating new patterns. So they brought something to the world, but most of them just aren't needed.
Yeah. The thing is, okay, let me go back to,
you do that.
I've done this before where I've talked about, let's say my university days, studying engineering or finance or whatever.
Birdie num-nums.
Let's say in engineering, I don't think that I ever had a professor, let's say thermodynamics or calculus or something, where the professor claimed to have come up with something, some new thermodynamic model or whatever. No, conservation of energy or whatever it is. All these concepts were discovered a long time ago, maybe by Isaac Newton in physics or whatever it is. But they were the best teachers because they taught the principles and they kept them simple, right? The calculus didn't change. The thermodynamic principles or the physics principles, they didn't change. Energy balance and conservation of momentum. None of these things changed. You just had professors who were really good at teaching the concepts. And then you had the ones who sucked at it. And hopefully you got the former teachers, not the latter.
Right.
And I think it's the same thing with hypnosis. Yes, sometimes you will come up with a new way of doing something, but most of the time it's a new way of explaining it or a better way of explaining it, keeping it simple.
Good point. If you look at books like Hypnotic Realities with Ernest Rossi, deconstructing the work of Erickson, let's say, because when you deconstruct Milton Erickson, there's such a vastness to the subtlety of what he did. I think people mistake it for complexity.
Yeah.
And begin to add and add and add. The bottom line is elegance is take away what you don't need. It's not see how much you can shove into that drawer.
And so maybe that's a good time. And I know this isn't in our list of bullets, but maybe we could go back to the very beginning and talk about what is it that we do in the introductory portion of our 5-day class? What do we tell every student about hypnosis and the reason that we teach the Ericksonian paradigm first and how hypnosis is easy and that you've got this neo-Ericksonian paradigm that you teach.
Right.
I think we should dive into that for a few minutes.
You go ahead, buddy. I'm just going to
I want you to do it.
Well, the whole point is you have sort of two ends on a continuum where we have Milton Erickson stuff, which is incredibly subtle. That all conversational hypnosis came out of. I mean,
right.
Absolutely all. And then you have the other end of the spectrum with the extremely direct people like Esther Brooks and Ellman and Gil Boyne. And
you are going into a trance.
The slam dunk.
The very
you're doing
obvious
ravine
stuff.
there. Yeah, well, I'm telling you what's the truth.
Point being, the stuff that you generally would see in a movie or whatever.
Yeah, really authoritarian, paternal.
Nobody would look at that and go, oh, that's conversational hypnosis.
No.
So the very opposite of what you see in
let's not even
movies.
say opposite. Let's say further to the other end of the
not
scale,
opposite.
Right?
You're right. It's not, we stopped calling it opposite sides of a coin. It's a continuum, right?
So we like to say we train our students to be as indirect as possible. That brings in the subtlety, and as direct as necessary.
Right.
So you really want, even that is a simplified model. It's not how much can we throw in, how many different patterns. I got a phone call from a guy a few years ago, Chris. He left a message on my business account, on my business phone. And he wanted to impress me because he wanted to do my master hypnosis course.
Oh, yeah, you've told this on the podcast.
Did I?
Before,
Yeah, the guy, the complexity.
But it was a long time ago.
And
so
what I'm doing is you're going to a trance. And you can listen to this call and it'll make you want to put me in your class. And as you realize that you're listening to this call, you can go deeper into. This is a guy who is modeling. I think he's modeling Tad James,
modeling Erickson,
Richard Bandler, modeling Erickson. And he's just gotten further and further away from sanity and attempting to throw all these patterns in on the phone. It's too complex.
Yeah, and this is why, in my opinion, we'll get people who take our class who are, let's say, trial lawyers, defense attorneys, salespeople, management executives.
Yep.
Because if they can learn how to engage people in ordinary sounding conversation that just happens to be fascinating, that's hypnotic.
Yeah.
And that can be conversational hypnosis, which, by the way, conversational hypnosis simply means that it's happening through ordinary conversation. It doesn't speak to whether it's covert or overt.
Right. My question is, Chris, what is ordinary conversation?
Well, exactly.
How do we determine that?
All ordinary, to me, any ordinary conversation is just a conversation that doesn't sound freaking weird. No, I'm serious. Like, if somebody says, well, I'm going to teach you the principles of conversational hypnosis, and you start by really making awkward, intentional eye contact.
I'm laughing because I love the word
I'm doing
awkward.
This too, yeah. So I'm looking at you. You guys have to just imagine as you're listening that I'm looking at Mike here.
He is. He's doing very awkward.
Focused. And Mike, I wonder, as we sit here in these chairs together, recording this podcast, how quickly can you just begin to wonder where we might go for lunch later? You know, like that's not a normal conversation.
No.
So it certainly isn't going to work as a covert model of hypnosis. Whereas if you're my client and you're sitting in a chair, and I've already now introduced the fact that, hey, we're going to be doing hypnosis together. And you've come to me, let's say, to overcome that anxiety of whatever anxiety you're dealing with. And now you're sitting in the chair and we slowly segue into this hypnotic work and we start having a conversation that I'm driving. And it doesn't sound perfectly ordinary because obviously it's framed as hypnosis. And as you sit there, Mike, and really just take a deep breath and close your eyes now. And begin to think about all of the times that you've felt amazing.
Right.
And you can get over so many problems because
you've
already
think of that thing that you brought into this session today and all the strengths that you had prior to worrying about that thing that you can take
That's gone
throw
now.
away now. That's right.
So that's a different type of conversation. Whereas in the street, to a random stranger, that would seem very weird. But to a client in your office, or to any person who was introduced to the idea that you're going to be doing hypnosis together, that's simply conversational hypnosis, right? But you wouldn't call it covert hypnosis if it was like, hey, let me talk weird to you all of a sudden. So hopefully that makes some sense.
Simplicity.
And there's
simplicity.
Right. So there's this spectrum of conversational through to very direct and authoritative. So
from
once somebody's
to directive. Yeah, from maternal to paternal.
And that's why we teach the conversational stuff. We teach it up front. We teach this up front because it's more difficult typically than just having somebody do exactly this process. Stare at this coin.
And that's what
close your eyes,
our cards are for too. Our hypnosis language cards. They teach the conversational patterns.
Yeah, that's why we came up with the Mike Mandel Hypnosis language pattern cards, which are available at MikeMandelHypnosis.com/cards, and they're awesome.
I didn't interrupt you.
No, you didn't. I noticed because I pointed at you.
It's really hard not
I gave you like a warning. I'm going to be doing an URL.
Let's go to the next one here, Chris. I've got in the list. Focus on the client. Now, you could this doesn't have to be hypnotherapy, so we could actually say focus on the subject.
Focus on the subject.
Or
focus on the person that you are communicating with, or the people that you're communicating with. And that makes it useful for public speakers or educators or anything, really, right?
Well, let's talk about that for a second, about the public speakers. One of the most amazing things you can do as a speaker, and honestly, I have done this intuitively for quite a while, is because I do a number of keynotes, as you know. One of the things you can do is pick out one person in the room and talk directly to them for like 30 seconds, even if they're quite a ways. It has a powerful effect. And then someone in another area of the room. And what I would always do is pick somebody who was looking at their phone or not paying attention and draw them into my loop. And the best I have ever seen this done was Jordan Peterson. When Heather and I went and saw him, had like third row seats. Yeah. And he spoke for 2.5 hours without notes. It was absolutely fascinating. And at one point, he walked up to the front of the stage and he's 8 feet away and he spoke directly at us for like 2 minutes. And I'm sitting there like a 5-year-old going, that's Jordan Peterson. He's speaking right to me. It was pretty cool. Yeah. It's I was just thinking when you were saying that, how obviously the person that gets drawn into that loop, the person that's being directly attended to is going to get drawn in, but everyone else is going to take note of it too. Oh, that's interesting. He's speaking directly to someone over there. I hadn't even thought of that. And that creates this curiosity. Like, why is he speaking directly to that person? That's great. Right? And as you know, I'm doing the keynote at HypnoThoughts Live in Las Vegas. Oh, that's going to be August at the world's biggest hypnosis conference. So you'll be doing this. I'll be doing it there, buddy. You'll be doing this. Yeah. Scott, we're looking at you. Yeah, Jason. And Scott. And Richard and everyone else. Yeah, it's going to be a great time. So focus on the client, focus on the person, focus on whoever it is that you're presenting to. And there's reasons for this. If you're doing therapy, the way Chris and I do this kind of work and the way we teach it is you're not sitting staring at some notes as though you're a psychoanalyst and, reading some kind of script at someone. You are entering a psychodynamic loop with that person, a communication loop, whereas their external analog behavior, their responses, their gestures, their breathing, everything is coming back to you, which is now changing your response to them. You cannot engage in a psychodynamic loop elegantly if you don't focus on the client, if you're focusing on yourself. And we teach to work in uptime. And when we're in uptime, we have no self-awareness. Downtime is trance. It's all self-awareness. It's all internalized and sinking in feelings. And uptime is no self-awareness until it's pointed out that you have no self-awareness, where you suddenly have self-awareness. And that's why people don't like being in front of a group doing public speaking, because they don't go into uptime. They're going into downtime and evaluating, how am I coming across? How are they looking at me? Why are they looking at me that way? No. So if you're focusing on the client, you can now build this psychodynamic loop and make it more and more powerful. I love that point, because focus on the client means you're not thinking about yourself. Right. And you're not evaluating, I wonder if he feels this. I wonder. All of that is downtime. Yeah. All of that, it's That's not funny. Funny. It's not funny. It's hilarious. It's interesting in that, this is something I naturally do, but I never really thought about it that way, that I'm focusing on the other person. Yes. And I'm not evaluating my own work. Because you're in uptime. Is this working? Right. Yeah, you do uptime well. In fact, I said, man, the last training, I told my wife, I said, you have just gone another huge leap. You're a freaking amazing trainer.
Thanks,
now, buddy.
man. Thanks, man.
Now, having said
it's a lot
that,
of fun. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Let's get to this next point though, because it ties in.
Four times
yeah,
now.
I know. I heard you say
ignored
it.
it.
I'm ignoring it completely, and so is everybody else. By the way, yeah,
that's a good one.
I'm mind reading the future. Okay, so focus on the client, and that leads into
no, but I'm saying this also applies with hypnosis shows.
Yes.
If you're not focusing on the subjects, how are you going to notice who your best subjects are? How are you going to notice who the merely compliant are? How are you going to notice the people who are up there just to put on a show for laughs, who you need to get off your stage?
Yeah, the ones making eye contact with their buddies in the third row, going,
and opening their eyes and laughing.
Mess with this guy.
You've got to focus on the subject or the client, not most of the time, but all the time, and that'll make your work far more powerful.
I definitely agree with that. Now, we also have a bullet point here that says avoid scripts except as a study aid. And that means scripts in the form of transcripts are useful because you can read through somebody else's example of a session and you can learn from it. But we are not big fans. We're anti-fans of reading stuff at clients.
Oh.
You wouldn't show up on stage and read your speech, right?
Right.
No good speech deliverer. Is that
I have to call you on that. There is one who was phenomenal, who read his speeches entirely, word for word. That was Ronald Reagan.
No kidding.
He did amazing speeches, and his speech writers had done a great job in crafting them, but he would read them. But because he had been an actor, he delivered them so well, it just seemed like he was just talking off the cuff.
Okay, that's fascinating.
So
for the most part, though, if you think about when you were in school or when you were watching somebody give a great presentation, generally those people who seemed like they were just talking, they were awesome. And if somebody was clearly reading their presentation, it just comes across as
and their head would be
poor.
down, they'd be mumbling. And so, in fact, one of my favorite scenes in one of my favorite books, The Catcher in the Rye, which I just reread, he talks about Holden Caulfield, the protagonist, talks about being in school, and they had a thing in English class. And one guy would get up and have to make a speech to the class. In fact, everyone did. And the rest of the class, as soon as he'd go off topic, would scream digression at him.
Uh-oh.
So you got a guy who's supposed to be talking about sheep farming. And he said, today I'm going to be talking about sheep farming. My uncle had a sheep farm in North Dakota. My uncle used to like to wear a lot of overalls. A digression!
Yeah.
And it would freak the guy out completely by continuously doing this. I don't know why I brought that in. I guess someone needed to hear it.
Yeah.
But scripts,
this is an important point, and we're going to have to hurry through some of these.
Well, we have to go to a commercial break, Chris.
We will, but let's wrap up.
Hang on.
Oh, horrible. He's coughing.
Memories of poor old Jerry Kine.
All right.
Okay.
So, that's just horrible. So, avoiding scripts, the reason that we say this is because we have seen so many emails through the years, or let's say in a Facebook group conversations, does anyone have a script for X, Y, Z, whatever it is? Insomnia.
Does anyone have a script for fear of green frogs with purple spots?
When someone says, I need a script for this particular thing, it means that they are not focused on principles of hypnosis, which is the entire point of us doing this series of podcasts on principles. Understand how to interact with the person, how to elicit information from them that can unpack their problem, and then resolve it using principles, right?
Yes.
And we'll get into more of some of what
and the whole idea of scripts as a study aid, I think that's a great idea.
Yeah.
If you want to study a script on dealing with sadness or whatever, study it until it's second nature, so you can do it not word for word, but principle by principle.
Right.
Work with a person without staring at a piece of paper.
So that's our belief of the principles of hypnosis, sort of very beginning. Now,
and we're right. Now, hang on. Notice how scripts, what we just said, ties in with the second one, focus on the client.
Mm-hmm. That's why I brought it up.
Yeah, you cannot focus on the client if you're staring at a piece of paper.
If you're staring at paper, reading something, and what you're reading is static, it is not dynamic, whereas how you interact with somebody is dynamic. You can adjust to what is going on in the moment, and you can't adjust the words on that paper to what's going on in the moment. And a comedian would adjust what's going on in the moment, right? A stand-up comedian has his piece, but he's going to...
He'll work around it if he has to.
Yeah. Exactly.
He'll pick up on opportunities for humor and so on.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's the same thing. Don't treat hypnosis as anything different than that. It's different, but...
That's a comedy act,
You know what I mean. Okay, and now, Mike, what are we going to do?
And now, a word from our sponsor.
tonight on the Gus Grissom Network.
Hey, great party, Stan. The decorations are beautiful.
Thanks, Reg. Doreen and I have put a lot of work into it.
I can see that. Do you want some help at putting these hors d'oeuvres out? I can give you a hand before the others get here.
No need, big fellow. All under control here.
So who else are you expecting tonight? Neighbors or mostly folks we know from the office?
Well, Reg, I need to warn you about that.
Oh, hell no. Tell me you didn't invite Bitchard.
No, I didn't. But Doreen did. She feels sorry for him.
Wait, what's there to feel sorry for? The guy's his own worst enemy. I've never met anyone so effing negative. He'll ruin the party for sure.
Hello, co-workers. Nice spread there, Stan. Hi, Reg.
Hi, Wolfgang. Reg invited Bitchard.
Oh, hell. This is going to be a horrible party.
What crap weather. That smoked salmon looks horrible. He'll probably give us food poisoning. I think I'm getting flu. And you'll all catch it, and then get pneumonia, and die. Hi, Wolfgang. Your hair looks stupid. I hate that jacket, too. It makes you look like a Nazi.
I'm going out on the balcony until the others arrive.
I think I'll join you, Wolfgang.
So, can I offer you a drink, Bitchard?
That's cheap scotch. I'd never drink it. What's with the tablecloth? The pattern looks like somebody with Ebola threw up on it.
I think I need to speak to Doreen.
The Adventures of Bitchard, the man who hated everything. Tonight on the Gus Grissom Network.
All right, Mike, we are back, and I think we should cover a few more of these bullets and then wrap up the podcast, and we'll then solicit audience questions, and we'll collect them, and we'll do another version. We'll just keep expanding on this until we're sick of the damn topic.
Until we're sick of the damn thing.
Yeah, and then we'll just shut it down.
Sick of the bastard.
Shut her down.
You can't say bastard.
All right. So the next bullet is, I love this one because it's right out of Anthony Jacquin's book. Reality is Plastic is the name of his book. And in that book, he says, be the hypnotist.
And what he means by that is something that every stage performer has to master, and every public speaker as well. You have to be the authority. And that's why I hate that old idea that some people said with hypnotherapy. Ask your client, tell me everything you know about hypnosis. That's ridiculous. You are the hypnotist. You are the expert. They are paying you.
Doesn't your dentist ask you everything you know about fillings?
Yeah.
Dental
tell me everything
surgery?
You know about removing mercury amalgams.
Tell us everything you know about anesthesia. Sticking needles in the gums, or obviously
so
not.
You are the hypnotist.
I
and
like
I love the way
Jason Linett has a line that says there can only be one expert in the room.
Oh, that's beautiful. But what's interesting is you can tell Jason that you used his name to overwrite Anthony Jacquin's name at that moment.
That is true, which is horrible. Sorry, Anthony.
I think we should throw them in the octagon together. That'd be kind of cool.
Yeah.
Now listen.
Okay.
What do you mean when you are the hypnotist, Chris? When you work with someone, what does that mean to you?
That means that I am the one directing the show, directing the experience.
Right.
I'm the one asking the questions. I'm obviously in charge of picking up on the cues too, what's going on. But in the context of change work, I am the one basically driving the experience for the client here. What are we going to do? We're going to do this now. So stand up, take a deep breath in, whatever it is. And I'm the one being very congruent and very confident that I can help you. I can help you make the change that you want to make. Let's do it.
Yeah, right? That's great. You're the one, I like that, driving the bus. You're the one running the show. You're the big kahuna. You're the slice of bread on the old milky bit of toast. You're the squeezed zit on the face. You're the softness around the edges when it's just a little too rainy on those days. You're the man with the teeth, the man with the wallpaper, the man who knows you are the hypnotist.
Absolutely.
I like how you just let me go and you're just waiting for me to end because you knew it was pointless to try to interrupt.
Completely pointless. Yeah. Well,
so
we have
walking your authority. Like, in fact, how can you be the hypnotist? Well, you got to study. You've got to know your stuff. But when you know it, do something to get in the zone before you deal with the subject. You can do circle of excellence. You can imagine somebody would be an amazing hypnotist. You imagine Milton Erickson or Richard Bandler or, Igor Ledohovsky or me or Chris or someone standing there who's really good at this already. See that person, look at that person, watch that person breathe, and then step into them and breathe and feel like you are that person. just don't say, oh, hi, I'm Milton Erickson. And that's not being the hypnotist in the right way. But you want to live it. You want to feel it.
I agree. The next one that I want to touch on here is maintain rapport. In fact, it's not just maintain. You've got to build the damn thing in the first place. You got to build rapport with your client, with whoever it is. If it's an audience, if it's a presentation full of other executives and you're a sales guy, you've got to build rapport so that they like how they feel about themselves when they're around you, and then you need to maintain it. So, Mike, you taught this many years ago, and I've always remembered this phrase that I think maybe you borrowed it. You'll tell us. Rapport is the glue that holds trance together.
I think I came up with that. If I didn't, I accept that I didn't, and I'll repent.
You just don't remember who you may have got it from. That's fine.
There's a line I said was mine for years, and it was Milton Erickson. So.
Things always get handed down, right? So rapport is the glue that holds trance together, and it's also the glue that holds really any kind of trance, not just a hypnotic trance in the context of change,
but also a relational trance.
Yeah, all the trances that people naturally slip into, which may be a good time to bring up the idea that hypnosis is a natural state. It's not some special magical thing that you are the only person who has the ability to help this person go into.
Right.
They're already doing it. You're just showing them how to do it better and showing them how to use the stuff they already have inside their brain to fix their lives.
Absolutely, Chris. And all therapy is really self-therapy. As therapists and hypnotists, all we can do is to offer people the opportunities to change and give them the tools to do it. As Churchill said, give us the tools and we'll finish the job, but they need the tools, and it's up to the client to change. But we can help that. If we have a strong rapport, they'll listen to us. And remember, too, the number one thing that helps people change is whether or not they like the therapist or coach they're working with. That's the number one thing beyond any technique.
Yep, and that's why it's so important to get that rapport, make people laugh, make them feel good about themselves, make them feel good about the changes that they're going to make that day.
Right, which will propel them forward.
Yeah, maintain that feeling. Couple of more, then we're going to end this podcast.
Well, let's go to don't reinvent the wheel. This is an interesting one.
We kind of touched on the idea that there aren't that many new things. They're just great ways of teaching it.
Great ways of repackaging them.
Yeah.
So I think it's important to find the quality stuff that works. If I'm teaching someone NLP, I'll teach them how to use very simple things like submodalities and anchoring it. That still gets great results. We don't have to pile on 15 different techniques. And someone told me during our training, and they said, oh, have you heard of the such and such protocol? And I said, no. And they ran it by me. It took them like 8 minutes to describe it to me.
Wow.
Endless doorways and paper shredders and steps. And the question is it necessary? We're back to simplifying. So I think it's really, really important just to simplify the model. And what are you opening on the screen here?
Oh, don't worry about it. Keep talking.
Okay. Don't reinvent the wheel. There's enough great stuff out there. Learn what works and use that. You don't have to change everything. Like if you're going to design a new car, you're not going to start with a square wheel and see how that works. Well, let's try octagonal. Well, that's still too bumpy. Let's try triangular wheels. No, you know what already works. Find what works, learn what works, and apply what works, and you'll get great results with people.
Okay, so here's what I'm going to suggest, and this speaks to what I brought up onto the screen that you can see that the audience obviously can't because this is an audio podcast.
Good thing, too. You didn't shave.
Principles of Hypnosis, we have a really good tutorial on how instant and rapid inductions work because there are many, many ways to induce somebody into a hypnotic trance that you can then utilize to help them make changes.
Right.
And there are simple historical things like eye fixation and relaxation, progressive muscle relaxation. We're not huge fans of things that take a long time, but there are a bunch of really good ways to create trance quickly that don't involve reinventing the wheel, that just involve solid principles. And I want to suggest that if you're curious to learn these, where you want to go, and this is a URL, so prepare to write it down, Mike Mandel, hypnosis.com/LM, as in, well, it stands for lead magnet, in case you're wondering, because you're going to get on our email list. LM-power-inductions. So LM-power-inductions. If you go to that page, there is a opt-in form. You can click the download now button, or at least in its current incarnation, there's a download now button. We'll ask you for your name and your email address, and we'll send you a really great tutorial explaining how all of these inductions work. And they're based on catalepsy or confusion or shock or surprise. They are really simple to do, and they will get you profound results, and they will help you build strength in your principles of hypnosis rather than reading scripts at people and taking people through horrendously long progressive muscle relaxations that will just annoy the analytical
people.
Yeah, exactly. So do that. And then what we're going to do when we record podcast 114, 115, and however long we continue on with this series, let's dive more into, Mike, some of the different models of hypnosis that exist.
Yeah.
Talk about how to calibrate people as you're going through a hypnotic trance with them, how to engage people's emotions, because I think that's super important.
How to get a deep enough trance, aiming for somnambulism.
Yeah, aiming for that working state of trance, the somnambulistic trance, not the samulistic or the somnambulistic trance. The idea that as hypnotists, we are always learning. What is it you wrote down here? Aim for mastery.
Yeah, not dilettantism. Mastery, learning something thoroughly. In fact, as you know, Chris, one of the most enjoyable things in my life, being blessed to win a number of awards and so on, but one of the greatest things for me was when John Grinder signed my book. They collected papers of Milton Erickson. He'd seen me work, and just all he put was masterful exclamation
Yeah,
mark.
I think that's a simple way to describe what you do.
Oh, bless you. I thought it was a really, really nice thing, and I just love that. It just in one word, he said it all, what he thought. And somebody whose opinion I greatly value. The thing is, we should aim for mastery. Learns this stuff inside out. Get really, really good at it. Get good at a few things, brilliant at a few things, rather than learn everything sort of half-assed.
Exactly.
That's dilettantism.
Okay. So with that, we are going to end this podcast, and I'm going to repeat what I said earlier. We have audio questions and text questions that were sent in on, I think it was Saturday. Well, I don't remember the exact date, but a couple of days ago, prior to us recording this, I sent around an email to our entire email list, and I asked for your questions for this series. Many of you sent them in. Thank you for those. We are logging them all in a document, and some of you even recorded questions. So I encourage more of you to send questions in. Audio format is awesome. Otherwise, if you don't want to record it, that's fine. Just make it clear. Very well-worded questions have more chance of being included in the podcast. And we're going to dive deeper into some of this stuff, and we're going to really stick to principles to make sure that this doesn't dive into the weeds. This is going to be principle
nice metaphor.
Based. Yeah.
Very nice.
All right.
So, Chris, what about the empowering questions for today?
Here is your empowering question for today. Ask yourself, what areas of my life has negative thinking affected? And what will I do today to replace those negative thoughts with more empowering thoughts? What will I do today to switch off stinking thinking and move to thoughts that empower my life?
And the beat was right on cue.
Yep.
Nice one, Chris. Yep. I have a little meta 5 for you. It's a short one. I call it 1227. And a while ago, many years ago, in 1974, my father, my mother, and I all moved to 1227 York Mills Road. And that's a noteworthy place because those of you who've heard me tell the story of the 19-set Russian tank radio that appeared out of the blue one day, that's where it happened. It was in the underground parking lot there. And we lived at 1227 York Mills Road, Townhouse 49 in Don Mills, Ontario, which is part of the city of Toronto. My mom, my dad, and I, my sister had married and moved on, and we were there for a few years. And that place was very much one of my favorite places I ever lived. We moved 10 times, and it was next to a huge ravine, beautiful forest area. I spent a lot of time practicing jiu-jitsu outside with my friend Mike Smith. He broke my ankle outside that place. And it was a wonderful place to live. It was a townhouse, split level, great stuff. And that's where my mom passed away on, I think, July 5th, 1977, in fact, and she was buried the 7th of the 7th, 77. So it was always a place in the back of my mind. And after she died, my father and I moved to the same street my sister was on in Ajax, Ontario, and time passed and went on. And that was 1977 was the last time I lived there. And I would always drive by it, going to meet with our friend Adam Stein, the psychiatrist, or different people, going across Lawrence and driving through the city, I would often swing along York Mills Road and just take a look at the townhouses there because they were so much an important part of my life. And a couple of years ago, they put up a big sign saying they were building condos there. And it was a chance to buy one before they were, started work. And I thought, yeah, right. There's nothing going to happen. The sign sat there forever, it seemed. And the other day, my wife and I drove by. And guess what, Chris? The bulldozers, the steam shovels, and the wrecking balls have gone through. And the entire townhouse complex, the underground parking lot, all of it has been leveled. And I felt weirdly sad as we drove by and I saw what had happened to the place I loved.
Thanks, everybody, for listening to the Brain Software Podcast. This has been episode 113, the first in our series on the principles of hypnosis. So make sure you're sending in your questions. info@MikeMandelHypnosis.com is the email address where emails go to both Mike and to me, and we'll be happily including your questions, provided they're really well worded or spoken on future episodes. I want to encourage you again. Remember, if you want to get our inductions tutorial, the power inductions tutorial on how these things really work in the real world, go to MikeMandel.com/LM-power-inductions. And you'll get an awesome tutorial that explains all of this to you. And we'll see you on the next episode.
Thanks again.
And good night.
Okay, I don't think you should ever say bastard in a podcast. My question is, Chris, is it okay to sing it?
I think it is. It is definitely okay to sing
There
it.
once was a man, and the man was a bastard. He was a bastard by day and a bastard by night. And he founded a town, and he named the town Bastard, where the Black Bastard River shone blue in the light. And the bastards of Bastard were all very happy, with their cattle all pastured in fair Bastard Plain, and the bastards' girls wed in the first church of Bastard, where the pastor of Bastard had blessed them in vain. For the Welsh they came down with their glaives and their hammers, they sang as they fought, and they ripped up the ground. But the bastards of Bastard, they fought just like bastards, and the bastards were driven from old Bastard town. And the Scots, they invaded the north end of Bastard with their kilts and their claymores and tramped through the mud. But the bastards of Bastard drove back the Celt bastards till the Black Bastard River ran red with Scots blood. For we loved our fair town, the fair town of Bastard, where the Bastard King settled with his bastard son Jim. 'Twas where Robert the Bruce fought King Henry the Bastard, and there never was ever a bastard like him. For the bastard fought bastards wherever he found them. He would bastard them all, and he'd bastard them well. And the bastards were beaten just like effing bastards, and the bastards sent all of those bastards to hell. Oh, there once was a man, and the man was a bastard.